Alright, so first I'm going to go over some of the tools that you'll be using at the wheel, and then we're going to discuss actually how you sit at the wheel to have proper leverage and actually control over what you're doing and to be able to brace. So the primary tools you're going to be using on the wheel are your sponge. At the end, for some of the later pieces, we'll be using this, which is a chamois tool. I'll go ahead and show you the sponge again. Now we got two types of sponges. Doesn't really matter. They both hold water. So that's a natural sponge, and then this is just a polyester sponge. It's really whichever you prefer. The chamois tool is for cleaning up rims at the end. We have a wooden cutoff tool, which is for cleaning up at the end of the piece. We're not going to really use that while throwing. And you also have your ribs. You have a wooden rib, which is better for compression, and for some of your cheap metal ribs is less likely to cut you. The metal ribs are better for scraping off excess slip on the piece, and they come in a variety of shapes, but primarily it's for removing excess slip off the surface of your clay bodies when throwing, and for assisting in actually shaping your pieces. The needle tool, or probe tool, as Seth likes to call it, is primarily for either finding the depth of the bottom of your pot in the beginning when you're not as familiar with what it feels like for how far off the wheel head you are with your clay body, and the other one is for trimming off the tops of pots while you're throwing, but that's primarily what it's for. It will stab you, so be careful with it. As far as how you sit at the wheel, you'll notice that I'm actually pretty close up to the wheel. And the reason for that is when you are centering, or when you're actually working on the piece, you need to be able to be over your piece. And when you're centering, you need to be able to lock, usually either into your abdomen, into your leg, or onto the wheel head, so that you can prevent your arm from moving. The trick to centering is actually locking your arm in place and not letting it move, so that it forces the clay into a circle that is concentric and centered on the center of the wheel. If you're far out from the wheel when you do that, you have no leverage and you have to do it all with arm strength. If you're closer to the wheel, you can lock into your body and you can just lean into it and let your body weight and the rigidity that you can create through that to help you center. It will make it a lot less of a trying experience to figure out that feel. And that's really where centering takes practice, is getting that feel so that you know when it's on center. You know that amount of pressure you need so that the clay is moving and you're not. So when I start from when I wedge, I usually end up with somewhat of a log instead of an actual circular piece. Some people will actually round these out before they throw. I usually just wait and do it at the wheel. Yet again, you're going to round out your clay ball so that you don't have any ridges or areas that can trap air when you go to attach this to the wheel head, because that'll just give you headaches later. So yet again, I have a ball now that I'm going to attach to the wheel head, and you'll notice that the bottom is smooth. There are no ridges or lines that I can trap with air for when I start throwing. So you'll see some people where they'll just wham it on just throw it on the wheel head. The big thing is these lines here can help you center, and you want to get it as close to the center of this wheel as possible when you start. So really, that's all you need to do to start, is just get it as close to center as possible. If it's way far off, you can kind of smack it more into center. A little bit of a tap on the top of the piece before you start can help actually attach it to the wheel head. If you don't do this, you'll get to start to throw, and you're going to put your sideward pressure on, and it's just going to come right off the wheel head. As far as some of these wheels, they have two directions. You want to make sure that it is spinning counterclockwise, and this is so that it actually feeds into your hand. If it's going this way, you're not actually being able to move the clay very easily for the method that I center with. There are multiple different ways to center. I'm going to show you specifically this way. So when I line up my hands for centering, my wrist bone on this hand and the palm here is going to go through the center of the wheel head. My other hand usually lays on top, and I'm using the underside meat part of my hand, and I'm touching the two together. And You're going to get a little bit of, you don't need a whole lot of water. You don't need to sit here and do this. You're wasting water and you're going to make your clay way too soft. You just need enough that the clay slips through your hand. As soon as you feel it start to stick, you're going to come off. Just dip your hands in water and wet it down a little bit more. So I'm going to first, through here, and you see where my hand is coming through the center. I'm going to apply a little bit of downward pressure to attach it to the wheel head. And speed is your friend here. I'm going to start leaning in with this hand and pressing with my abdomen and start pushing in. And you can see, since it can't go into the wheel head because it's metal, it's going to start coming up. So I can raise it just by pushing in from the side. A little bit more water on. Now, the one method of centering where you just come up from the side and cone does that. I'm going to bring it back down to the wheel head. I'm catching with my back hand so I don't roll the top of the clay body over. So I'm going to push in, and then I'm going to also catch with my top hand and compress it together. You want to come off of whenever you're touching or moving the clay. You're going to slowly release your tension, because if you're pushing on here hard and you come off, you can see this wobble that it introduces again. So it'll look like it was centered, but if you come off too fast, it actually will leave it uncentered. So you slowly bring your pressure off, and you can see how this stays nice and concentric. These aren't wobbling back and forth. Now I will sometimes come in here and just scrape some of this excess off the bottom. I'm going to knock this off center again. I'm going to show you one more time, bring it in the center. So this is a good indication of, you'll see my bottom hand. I'm going to come in here, and if I'm loose, your hands are going to do this. If you brace and come in, you can see how that brings it right in center. You'll notice the top is jumping, and that's where that top hand to catch and recenter will come in handy. I can feel it drying up. I'm going to grab a little bit more water. And that is a centered piece of clay ready to open and start the process that you choose, whether it's a bowl, cylinder, throwing a cup, throwing a plate. So that's it for that part of it.